Hey everyone, welcome to the Faith Chapel podcast. We are so glad to have you join us. Faith Chapel exists to help people follow Jesus, be transformed by Jesus, and be on mission with Jesus. No matter where you are on your spiritual journey, you're welcome here. If you have any questions about who we are or what you hear, you can visit faithchapel.cc or email podcast@faithchapel.cc. We'd love to hear from you. All right, let's dive into this week's message. Well, hello, everybody. So good to see you. My name is Nate. If I haven't met you, all my friends online, thank you for being here as well. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. So about 52 weekends every year, right? And 51 of them, we will take some time to study the Bible, and we'll do a bit of that. But here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go through what we call the state of the church, right? So if you've contributed anything, you received a giving statement and a little update on what's happening. Here's why we do this. To me, it's really important to do once a year for a couple of reasons. Number one, here's why I love to do this. It is an opportunity for me to look at you, and on behalf of our church council, there are a group of people that run all the finances of our church, to just say thank you. Thank you. Anybody notice the world's been a little tumultuous the last couple of years? Yeah, in case you didn't, you might want to look into that. And there are so many organizations, churches that have really, really struggled. And in the midst of all of this, there have been times when it's been difficult, of course, but your kindness, our corporate generosity has just been unbelievable. So looking at you and just saying thank you. That's one reason we do this. Here's the second reason: accountability. Our desire is that Faith Chapel is the best place to give to and through. That we realize that every minute that's volunteered, every dollar that's given is an act of worship and sacrifice and surrender on your part. And so we always want to be the best stewards. We have an open book policy when it comes to our budgets and finances. And so I love being able to show you, like, hey, we're trying to be the best stewards possible of our collective giving. And then the third reason is this: I like to talk about the future, all right? So we'll do that in just a little bit. So here's what I'd like to do. Let's look back and then look forward, all right? That's our first slide here, is looking backwards and then looking forwards. I want to talk to you a little bit about what last year looked like. Our first slide: found people, find people. These are our core values, which I'll revisit in a few moments. People ask me all the time, so, with everything COVID and changes, what's our attendance like from 2019, right? That's when we didn't have COVID around, to now. And we're about 81% of the in-person attendance. That's been climbing gradually. But I talk to people all the time. Some of you are online right now, and you might say, well, I'm waiting until Omicron disappears. I totally get that. So we're about 81% in-person attendance. Now, here's a really interesting number. We are up 834% in our online attendance, which is beautiful and confounding because people have been doing church kind of the same way for about 2,000 years. And all of a sudden, we have to figure out how to do things a little differently. So this is beautiful. I want to look at my online friends for a moment. One thing that we do not want to do is we do not want to create spectators. Like, if it's your chance to tune in for 60, 70 minutes for like a little dose of Christianity, we're not interested in that whatsoever. Jesus made it really clear what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make disciples. That means make followers of Jesus. And so this is where this number is super interesting. We're having to explore brand new ways of how do you actually make disciples, people who can follow Jesus. Here's just a couple of examples. We get a call a couple months ago. Hey, my marriage is in trouble. I need to talk to somebody. I need a marriage mentor. All right. Let's set up coffee. Well, I live in Houston. Oh, okay. We'll figure this out. Somebody calling in the crisis says, I need to talk to somebody about my spiritual life. Let's get together. Well, I live in Australia. Okay, so we're kind of having to rethink everything. Most recently, hey, I really want to get baptized. Excellent. Let's get you baptized. I live in Virginia. Okay, we're going to set up your iPhone and you're going to fill up your bathtub. Like, how are we going to do this stuff, right? So this is brand new. It's calling for all kinds of innovation, and we're just doing our best. We don't even know how many people this represents because all we have is how many connections. It's up 834%. We have a couple of thousand people every weekend joining us online. Decisions for Jesus, we had about 479 people. This again, we don't always know what's happening over the airwaves, so we're trying to even work on that metric. Yes, I love that. We can celebrate that. God is generous, so we are too. Missionaries sent, even with travel restrictions, we're able to send 31 different people to work in different areas of the world. Hours given to local and global missions, almost 4,000. Invested in local and global missions efforts. This is in, as far as I can tell, in the 50 plus years history of this church, this is the largest number this has ever been. $1,658,000 were given away. That is, there have been so many people in need, and that's amazing. And then just in the month of December, we did our Increased Christmas where we said, how can we help people around the world? We're not interested in just throwing money at poverty. We want to actually make eternal differences. And this year, through Increased Christmas, almost $589,000 came in, which will be distributed throughout the year in every continent that you could imagine. Growing people change. So baptisms, we had about 200, and we're trying to figure out how to baptize people online, right? People in healing groups, I love this. People who have gone through crisis, addiction, grief because of the death of someone they love, recovering from divorce. We had 331 people involved in these healing groups. Save people, serve people, people on teams serving others. Love this. We had 1,400 plus people just giving up a day, giving up time to serve other people. Beautiful. We grow better together. So this number is really important to me. I love it when we meet like this, but I really believe that to thrive in your spiritual life, you need to be in community. You need to be in community. So tonight, our small group is going to be at our house. Tuesday morning at 6:30 a.m. I'm gonna meet with the guys from that small group. And I need people to hold me accountable. I need people to challenge me. I need people who I can love and serve. And so to have 2,000 of us involved in that, that's beautiful. We wanna see that continue to grow. Trying to figure out how do you do that even in the digital world? What is a small group meeting with people who are maybe all over the world? What does that look like? What time do you do it, right? It's a good question. Now, this would be our overall allocation of everything that we've corporately given. This is like, I've been a pastor for, 27 years. This is the first time that this is the largest item in the budget. And here's why we're able to do this. A couple of years ago, there was a mortgage on this, which you don't see anymore because we paid it off. And now our largest single budget line item is outreach and missions. We were able to give away 20% of everything that came in. That was that $1.6 million. Ministry support and administration, 19%. Kids and students, almost 14%. Weekend ministry, 12.5%. Occupancy, that's paying utilities, that type of thing, just under 10%. Capital improvements, carpet. We always have this, we have a phrase around here. We say our building is a tool, not a trophy. Okay, so if the carpet's not worn out, we've got a problem, right? The more it wears out, that's the better sign. So that's that. Groups and ministry care, 7.7%. Church planning and campuses, just under 5%. And then Camp on the Boulder mortgage. I want to talk for a second about this, 3.7%. Some years ago, we entered in with the United Methodist Church, and they have been absolutely fantastic. They were closing down a camp. We took it over and we leased it for a few years and then decided, hey, we think we want to buy this. And we looked at them and said, how would you like to work this out? And they said, how about a 5-year no interest loan where you just pay us for the camp? So we are well over a year into that. In another 3.5, 4 years, this will be completely gone. The United Methodists have just been phenomenal. Next slide, talking a little bit about Camp on the Boulder. A couple of really beautiful numbers. 846 kids came, adults 701, and then this number, 487 people serving. For Camp on the Boulder, we have 3 with 2 full-time and 1 part-time employee. How do we do that? Because we would typically need a staff of like 30 or 40 people to run this. It's because week after week, people go up there, and you guys are my heroes. We dig ditches, and we put on new roofs, and we mow the grass, and we serve so that all of these people can have a profound experience. Next slide. Looking forward, 2022 and beyond. I want to talk a little bit more about camp. It's a place where we provide an environment, and we want to continue to host hundreds of young people facilitating, here's our phrase, the best and most significant week of their summer. So we want it to be the best where your grandkids, your kids that you sponsor, go to camp, and they're like, it was the best week of my summer. But if that was all we had, we wouldn't be happy. It's got to be the most significant week of their summer too, where I experienced an environment where I began to understand what the Bible was all about. I began to understand who Jesus is, where I began to understand what worship is, how to live for him. So the best and most significant week of the summer. Something else that's really interesting, and like only a handful of people would know about this, is we're launching what we're calling the Story House up there. I'm gonna show you a picture. I want to tell you a little story about this. This is a rendering. We have 62 acres up there, and a couple gentlemen from the church came to me, and they've been serving up there for summer camps, and they said, hey, we have a vision. We would love to have a place where adults could go and spend a 3-day weekend. And how this building is structured, think of a duplex. It's divided in 2. There would be 6 bedrooms, sleeping for up to 12 on this side, and for up to 12 on this side, so you could have 24 people per weekend. And we find this whole idea of community that if I'm going through some sort of training or preparation, if I'm trying to recover from something that was really painful, mentoring relationships, meeting an hour a week is helpful. But if you can sit down with people for 2 nights and just dialogue and study and pray for each other. So this house is well on its way. They've actually already raised about $100,000 for this just from word of mouth. So this is our hope that for the next 20 or 30 years, there's this house up there that, and by the way, anybody who's been to camp, it won't even have the urine-proof mattresses. It'll have real mattresses, okay? This is adult-friendly, okay? Where your small group you've been studying like something on marriage, or a group of singles studying like how do I thrive in like where I'm at, where you like put an exclamation mark on your time together, and you just have this retreat atmosphere where people are healed, where people are encouraged, where people are prepared. So that's well on its way. Outside of the walls of the church, we believe that we are called to help people find, follow, and be on mission with Jesus. In essence, that's to make a disciple. In the coming year, we will continue to emphasize and explore new ways to plant new churches. I want to talk about this for a moment. There's probably rarely a weekend that goes by where I don't meet someone. I'll tell you, 3 weeks ago, I think it was, I met somebody up in the atrium just outside of those doors in the balcony. They introduced themselves, shook hands. I said, tell me about yourselves. We're from rural Canada. I'm like, really? What are you doing here? Well, we don't have a life-giving church anywhere near us. And so we tune in every week, and we just wanted to come across the border, and we came down for an official visit. I meet people almost every weekend from Baker, North Dakota, even Canada. I haven't even been thinking about Canada. Don't take it personal. If you're from Canada, few of us think about Canada, but it's on our minds now, okay? And so we are trying to figure out ways. We want to plant urban churches. That's really important. So I'm still recruiting for Butte and for Fargo and Denver and all our larger cities. But we're finding this pent-up need for you have groups of followers of Jesus in small rural communities, which we have everywhere around us. And so we're trying to design, what does it look like to have a life-giving group of Jesus followers in the midst of all these little towns? And so it's exciting. We've got somebody on staff, Zach Ballin, who's really giving a lot of time and attention to this, exploring new realities of digital church and discipleship. What does that look like? and then send teams across the globe to engage with unreached people groups. This is one of the things that I am most excited about. We have a group of about a half dozen young adults. I think they're all like 35 and under. And they've decided they're going to a place in the world where it is illegal to talk about Jesus. And they are in language training. Several of them are learning Arabic right now. They're already overseas. They're creating a business. It's a place where somewhere around 1% to 2% of people would even be familiar with who Jesus is. And it's something I wish I could talk about it more, but for safety and security concerns, we can't show you their faces. We can't tell you where they're going. We have to be incredibly cautious. But from just a little place like Billings, Montana, you've got a group of these just radically committed missionaries who are going to a place in the world that most of us wouldn't want to visit and saying, we'll live here. We'll give our lives. We'll give our lives to help these people know who Jesus is. All right. Amazing. So all in all, just a huge thank you to everyone. Now, I want to take our remaining time and talk to you a little bit about our core values, but I want to tell you where our core values emanate from. In Acts chapter 2, this man named Luke has just chronicled the life of Jesus in the Gospel of Luke. And then in Acts chapter 2, he's going to chronicle the first, we think about 9 to 13 years of the early church. In Acts chapter 2, it's kind of focused in the city of Jerusalem. Jesus has been gone probably a matter of just months at this point. And Luke comes to Jerusalem and he observes this group of Jesus followers. It's the first church, the first Christian church. And here's what I find fascinating. He doesn't record what they did or how they did it. He doesn't record that we hear that they came together every day. But he doesn't record like how many songs they sang or how long they prayed or how long the teaching was or what the liturgy, the pattern of their service was. But here's what strikes him. As a man who's Greek and part of the Roman Empire, he sees this group of Jesus followers and he is shocked by what happens, what they value, what takes place in their community. So to me, when I read Luke chapter 2, starting at verse 42, it's the first ever state of the church. And so when we do this state of the church, it's kind of going back, not so much about what we're doing, right? Because you can do church a million different ways. The New Testament is surprisingly vague on what a service is supposed to look like. We just don't have instructions. That's why you can go to other places in the world. I've been to services in Papua New Guinea where you think worship is done after the first 90 minutes because the worship team puts down their instruments and you're like, okay. No, it's just because their fingers are tired and the next worship group is coming on for another 90-minute set. And there's not just one person speaking, there's 3 different people speaking, and like your stomach is growling because you've been in church for 5 hours. So if you think I'm long-winded, So we're not told how to do church, but we're told what's involved in this early church. Let's read this together, then I want to talk to you about our core values that emanate from this. They, meaning those earliest followers of Jesus, devoted. There's a sense of dedication. They made decisions, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. There's no New Testament yet. So the only way they can know the teachings of Jesus is from the apostles who walked with Jesus. And so they tell them the stories. This is what Jesus taught us, and to fellowship. This radical new idea of corporate love and respect for other people. And one of the things that astounds Luke, who's writing this, is in a time and age where there's sexism and racism and there's these people are more important than those people. In this early Christian church, there's this fellowship where you have men and women, rich and poor, people of all races coming together, corporately sharing this. We have the same Father. We have the same Creator. So when I look at you, you're my sister. When I look at you, you're my brother. So that fellowship to the breaking of bread, probably it's a first century idiom for sharing a meal together. So not necessarily communion, but they just had meals together and to prayer. This is what they're dedicated to. We'll call that, it's worship. Every one of those is an act of worship. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. This is a miraculous environment. I grew up, my dad became a pastor when I entered middle school, and this crossed my mind a lot when I was a kid. Like, why is church boring? I don't think it should be boring, right? I love this awe that people came into their gatherings and they were just like, oh my goodness, could God really love me like that? Could I really be forgiven? I'm in awe of this environment of miraculous things where people I know, I look at them, I'm like, you're here? Oh my goodness, I knew you in high school. What? You're clean and sober, you're changed. Like, there's just this ongoing life change, miraculous reality, freedom. All of this is happening. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. So Luke says, I just saw this radical sacrificial generosity where human beings are governed by this. Like, no, that's mine. What's mine is mine. And what's yours is yours. And I'm going to hold on to this. Luke says, in this new community of Jesus followers, people, they didn't own their possessions. They just realized what God's given me is just for me to steward. And there are people who are in desperate need. Somebody else said, hey, I can do something about that. And there's this sacrificial generosity. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. This is probably their large gathering on the southern steps of the temple. It still exists in Jerusalem. They broke bread in their homes, so they have this big gathering, and then they meet in their homes, and they have meals together, and ate together with glad and sincere hearts. They weren't like, oh, nuts, somebody's coming over. It was just like, seriously, you're coming over, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. That means the people in Jerusalem outside of the church. Is that people in Jerusalem said, hey, those Jesus followers, I like those people. They're the most honest, they're kind to me, they're the best employees out there. They do what they say they're gonna do. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. There's impact and growth. They didn't exist just for themselves. Like the community, the city of Jerusalem is literally being changed because of these Jesus followers. So from that, emanating from that, here's our core values. And I just want to walk through them because I think they're a good reminder, good kind of adjustment in our lives. Number one, this whole idea of Jesus in everything. We're just unabashedly, unapologetic, focused on the person, the mission, the teachings of Jesus. We're going to be Jesus-centered, and you will find him in all we do. From the smallest little kids' classroom to our Friday event where the pillars, the veterans of the church gather together. We are in awe of the amazing love of God, and we honor him with excellence in our worship, work, words, and character. So there are a lot of important things in life. I understand this. But I'd say the vast majority are on the periphery. And so our goal is always going to be Jesus is at the center. And we're not going to let these things, no matter how passionate we are about them, replace the person of Jesus. We're focused on him. Core value 2, we grow better together. This comes back to that idea of community. We need each other to grow and make a difference in this world. We grow by gathering in circles, small groups, and in rows. Let me talk a bit about that. So what we're doing here right now, whether you're online or in the room, is we're in rows, right? You're looking at the back of someone's head, except for you guys, okay? You're looking at the back of somebody's head, and I think this is valuable. I hope this is valuable, that we gather together and we have this corporate time. Very important. So we value rows. We value rows with, has anybody ever been here on a Wednesday night? Our junior high, and, yeah, you have. Our junior high and high school group have grown so much that they now like come into this room. If you don't like loud music, please stay away. but like just this room is filled with kids in rows, but we value circles. Meaning we're looking at each other, we're in community. Like you may not know the name of most of the people sitting next to you right now, but you need to have some sort of group where you're in a circle, where you know people and people know you. Next core value, growing people change. If there is one thing that I would love to eliminate from planet Earth, it would be this: mean Christians. I don't understand them, and I don't think they should exist. They should be like an endangered species, right? We're a church where it's okay not to be okay, and I like really mean that. We understand that sin is a reality. We understand that there is human dysfunction. We understand that when you came into this room, when you turned in, you brought all your baggage with you. And Jesus was okay with people not being okay. We believe God loves us as we are, yet his love compels us toward healing, authenticity, and wholeness. We are being transformed by the power of the Holy Spirit from the inside out. Now, if we're not careful, here's what we do in Christian religious circles, is we focus less upon this and we focus more upon behavior modification. So we focus on, hey, change your behavior, stop saying that, start saying this, like get your behavior right. You know what Jesus did? Jesus said, I want you to know that you're forgiven and you're loved. And then there's this beautiful thing that happens. The Spirit of God begins to transform my identity, begins to address my insecurities, begins to heal the damage that I carry with me, and transformation happens from the inside out. My heart is changed, my motives are changed, my values are changed. I'm restored, and I can begin to look and talk and act like Jesus. Growing people change. My hope is that every one of us, whether you're a veteran or you're brand new to faith, you're spiritually unresolved, is that a year from now, there's been progress and development and healing and restoration in your life. God is generous, so we are too. God gave everything. Jesus decided to come to earth and enter into poverty, into a scandalous situation. Like he didn't hold anything back. Therefore, we have nothing to lose. We have enough and we trust him. We refuse to live in a mentality of scarcity. So scarcity is, you're just afraid there's not enough. And so when there's not enough, what do? You hold back. I want you to think for a moment about a time when the light came on your car telling you that you were empty. Right? How does it change how you drive? If you're not close to a gas station, what do? You're like, oh no, downhill, neutral, right? And then like, you're like trying to use some momentum, like push on that steering wheel. And you don't drive fast. People are honking because you like know that if I drive fast, a jackrabbit start is gonna take more gas. We're afraid that we're going to run out. If we're not careful, that's our mentality. And so we believe this. We're not just talking about money here. We believe that the God that we serve is generous in compassion, mercy, love, correction, coaching. He's generous in every way. And so if God is generous, we too can afford to be generous. We can afford to be generous in our love and our kindness, our compassion and our love. We can give because we know God is generous with us. We can give financially because we know God takes care of us and we have enough. We don't have to wait around saying, God, like, could you just give me some more love? No, you've got enough. We've got enough. And when we think of God that way, it allows us to be generous like God. Found people, find people. We're passionate about people far from God. And we will never stop caring about those outside of the walls of the church. This is a tendency in all churches, is we can be consumed with ourselves, right? Because we have plenty of needs in our own community. And we will never stop thinking about people outside of the walls of this church, thinking about people who live at next door in our cul-de-sac, in our apartment complex, in surrounding cities, across oceans. When Jesus left the planet, he said this, he said, now go and make disciples of all nations. He said that to people who couldn't hop on airplanes. I want you to do whatever it's gonna take to find everybody who's separate from me. And so we care desperately about lost people. You'll hear me, like we wanna make it possible for people who are spiritually curious to come to this church, to tune in. I talk to the spiritually unresolved almost every week, right? Just acknowledging you're not sure what you believe, and we care about you. We don't start caring about you once you say yes to Jesus. We care about you as you are right now. Serve people, save people, serve people. Save people, serve people. We are spiritual contributors, not spiritual consumers. The church does not exist for us. We are the church, and we exist for the world. So if we're not careful, we become spiritual consumers. I need some more. Give me more. The Bible teaches this, is that when Christianity is functioning at its very best, it's called theologically the priesthood of all believers. That it's not just one or two people who lead a church that are effective in the community, but it's when every single person realizes I am a contributor, not a consumer. I have love to give. I have a way to interact with the people around me, whether I live in Hardin or Lodge Grass or Roundup or Laurel or wherever it might be, wherever it is on the globe. It's like I am here to be a contributor, not just a consumer. And when we are functioning that way, that's when the church is really thriving. We don't exist for ourselves. Jesus built a church and said, now you reach the world. We exist for the sake of the world. That's why we're here. I wonder if you'd just take a moment and would you join me in prayer? And here's what I want to do in our prayer. I want to look back over our shoulder and I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to the Lord. And I want to look forward. 2,000 years ago, Jesus looked at his disciples and he made a promise. He said, I will build my church. I am not responsible for building the church. You're not responsible for building the church. I'm responsible to follow Jesus. You're responsible to follow Jesus. Jesus is going to build his church. And he said, here's the type of church I'm going to build. I'm going to build a church where the gates of hell won't be safe. This is the type of church that storms the gates of hell. And if hell is where people are locked in isolation and fear of God and addiction and emptiness, he goes, I'm going to build a type of church that comes up to the gates of hell and breaks the gates down. Not a church that's living in a defensive posture, scared, but a church that says, we're coming in. Like squirt guns in hand, right? We're coming in because nobody is too far gone. Nobody is beyond the love of God. So a church that breaks down the gates of hell. We hope that this helps you take your next step on your spiritual journey. If you'd like to get involved with the work and ministry of Faith Chapel, visit faithchapel.cc and click on Next Steps. If you'd like to speak to a pastor or connect with us in any way, email connect@faithchapel.cc. We look forward to connecting with you soon.